On this episode,
that first year, I did Vicki Lawrence, Debbie Boone, Debbie Reynolds, Mitzi Gaynor, and Shirley Jones. And I said, we'll do
That's a great season.
Yeah,
That's
we'll do a year of the Broads, and in between, we'll do a couple of Broadway musicals. So we would do a musical, and then we would shut down, and then the next week, I would bring Shirley in.
from the coveted corner booth in a little bar at the center of the Coachella Valley universe, welcome to another Big Conversation with Patrick Evans and Randy Florence, presented by the McCallum Theater. Visit McCallumTheater.org or reach the box office at 760-340-2787. Gentlemen,
thank you very much, Howard. We are here at the famous corner booth in Skip Page's Little Bar in Palm Desert, California, to kick off the 6th season of Big Conversations Little Bar. My name is Patrick Evans. I'm your host, and I'm here with my co-host, great friend, true humanitarian, philosopher, and king, Randy Florence.
Wow. You didn't mention sidekick once.
I'm going to do that later.
Aww. Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here with you. It's been a while.
It has been a little while.
I miss you guys.
I know. Well, we take, these long breaks. We were in the Bahamas between seasons. It was very nice.
I wasn't in the Bahamas.
Nor was I. And, of course, we are here with John McMullen, our producer. John,
welcome,
you're good?
John.
Just nod. He's good.
This is not where he wants to be today. He wants to be going to Tahiti.
Yeah.
But
with Michael
pretty
Childers.
much every day.
There you go. So 6 seasons in. And we have to give a big shout out to the McCallum Theater. They're our primary sponsor, our presenting sponsor. The season's underway. If you have not gotten your season tickets, you can still get tickets, but they're getting scarcer and scarcer. McCallumTheater.org is the place to go. But we give a big shout out to the McCallum Theater for supporting Big Conversations Little Bar. Gary Keefe and his entire team, they're doing a fantastic job, and it is a great pillar in this community. When you think about all of the people who performed on that stage, it's just pretty remarkable.
This is a really cool time in the desert. You just recently were on the red carpet again.
Yes, we were on the red carpet for the Palm Springs International Film Festival, and I got to interview a lot of really interesting stars. Really, it was amazing. I mean,
there was just one or two I cared about.
Ariana Grande told me to call her Ari.
Ari?
Yeah, she said, no, it's Ari. And then she gave me a hug. My 16-year-old daughter thought that was the coolest thing I've ever done in my life.
Your 67-year-old partner thinks that's pretty cool.
But Ray Fiennes for me was just to stand next to Ray Fiennes was like, why is this guy even talking to me?
Isabella Rossellini looked like she was in love with you.
She was incredible. That was arguably one of my favorite interviews. Stanley Tucci was very nice, but very aloof. I get the feeling that wherever Stanley Tucci goes, he wants to be somewhere else.
Yes.
Kieran Culkin swear at you?
Yes, he did. Kieran Culkin started off the interview. We told him this is going to be live on television. He said, okay, all right. And then he did a fake countdown. And at that point, we were live, and he said, okay, well, let me get my shits and fucks out right now. So now we're live, and he's just said that, and it rattled me, so I introduced him as Kieran McCulkin.
And if anybody you're going to miss their name, he's the one you want to do it to, right?
So that set him off, and we got another shit out of him somewhere in the interview, and he was mad at me for the rest of the interview. And so that was the low point of the evening.
Yeah, I think I had walked away from the TV at that moment. So
I wish I had.
Everything else was pretty amazing. I was living vicariously through you.
No, great. I mean, like the entire cast of Conclave, the entire cast of Emilia Perez. I got to interview Zoe Saldana, and I got to ask her my Star Trek question, which was very important, and she gave me a beautiful and lengthy answer, which I really appreciated.
And you came close to getting Angelina Jolie.
The reason we did not get Angelina Jolie is because Gary Oldman came up and threw his arms around us.
Fucking Gary Oldman.
Fucking Gary.
How many problems he calls this podcast?
He was fantastic. And he made it very clear he's a full-time resident of the Valley.
Yes.
So we got to get him on.
He was really clear about that.
Oh, yes, he was very clear.
Yeah.
Very, very clear about it. So, no, it was a fun evening. You can catch it if you're interested. You can see it on the YouTube channel of KESQ.
Well, this has been fun.
This has been great. Thank you for joining us. We want to thank our guests, Josh and Ray. You guys were terrific. No, our guests today, we've been talking about theater and theater.
Hey, we were a season in before I realized it wasn't theater. Maybe that's why I'm not getting any parts.
Do you spell it T-E-R or T-R-E?
That's too many questions. Joshua Carr and Ray Limon from Desert Theatricals.
Hello.
Here
Welcome.
as our guests, and we're delighted to have you.
Thank you
for having us.
We're happy to be here.
Very.
First time in this bar?
Very first
It
time.
is.
Yes.
We've driven by it a million times and never stopped, and now we'll be back.
Yes.
Well, I think every day that there are people here, I think a large part of that is because of Big Conversations Little Bar.
There's no doubt about
And
it.
these hot toddies are wonderful.
These are
The
really
hot toddies
good.
are very
these
good.
are good.
Perfect on this overcast day. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. When did you guys come to the Valley? I remember having you on Eye on the Desert as you were gearing up for season 1.
Yeah, I think we came out, let's see, we left in, it was 2018. We came out in May of 2018 and found a place we were renting to see what areas of the desert we liked and where we thought we might land, and then started looking for work. We really were, at our ages, we did a really foolish thing and left our house and sold our house in San Diego and came out to the desert with no jobs and nothing to do. And we thought, well, something will happen. So
Was there a plan?
No,
Ray?
that
No?
was just it. There was simply no plan. We just thought it would be fun. And this is where we landed here. That was it.
Ray thought he would maybe teach. He'd go back and do some teaching and dance choreography classes. And I was thinking, maybe I'll get into the hospitality industry, and maybe I'll go to the hotels and maybe do something different. We were both kind of over
Burnt out.
our theater experience in San Diego, and we just thought, let's get out and do something different.
You guys have been partners for 20 plus years.
33 years.
33 years.
And
Yeah.
that's gay years.
Yeah.
That's 6?
Yeah, times 7 is like dog years.
Wow. But partners in a business sense as well.
33 years. We started out right after we met in our own business, Limon Carr Productions, back there in Orange County, and started a nonprofit foundation back there as well that was Theatrical Productions Incorporated. So we blended the two companies and operated out of Orange County. We started Broadway in the Park in Tustin, which was out in the middle of a park. There was no stage. We had to bring in the stage, we had to bring in the truss, we had to bring in the generators, the portable bathrooms. We brought in everything and did this huge Broadway musicals in the park every summer, and had about 1,200 people every night for 5 nights.
It was basically let's do a show in the barn kind of thing. Yeah.
So what brought you two together?
We met at a bad dinner theater show.
really bad.
I swore I would never work in that theater, but I opened backstage, which is what you used to open back in the days when you were looking for auditions, and it was the only thing casting, and I thought I had to get in the show. So I thought I will audition there, and I got in, and the show had already been running 6 months. I was a replacement. So I got in, everybody already knew each other, and you go into those things with very little rehearsal. And so I got in, and he was working tech on that show. And I thought his name was Jason. I called him Jason for 2 weeks, and
and I answered.
and he answered. And on
Because you didn't care,
Yeah,
or because
at that point I didn't care.
and then Halloween night was the first day we actually kind of first met up, and we've been together ever since.
We went to a Halloween party at one of the busboys' house. It was a dinner theater in Tustin. And we went over to
I know exactly where that dinner theater is.
Elizabeth Howard's Curtain Call Dinner Theater.
Yes.
It's now something else. I don't know what it is now, but it's gone through a couple of changes. But yeah, that's where we met. I moved to California from Houston and did probably 13, 14 shows there, and these were long runs. We would do 7 shows a week for 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
And these guys were great. They packed them in, man. They knew how to sell a ticket and
Because you
get
could
a
see
dinner on the
and
table.
a show for
Yeah, it was like
$35.
$40 at that time.
Yeah.
That's right. He's overdating us. But yeah, so that's where we met. And I was doing the show. I was doing tech work. That I was out of the cast and working on lighting and sound. And then he came in and took over as Ambrose in Hello Dolly for one of the guys who was on his way out after 6 months. And the rest is
history,
as they say.
Wow. That's very cool.
And how quickly before you decided we need to partner up and do some
it
stuff
all
here?
happened pretty fast.
Yeah.
It was, We'd
Yeah.
been working for other theaters for so long that we kind of got to the point we thought we could do this and we could do it better.
Yeah, once we got to know each other's talents, and we, oddly, in the 15 years before, we had never crossed paths. So at Downey Civic Light Opera, Long Beach CLO, La Mirada, Whittier Civic Light Opera, and all those places that were out there where all the actors were working around, we never met. We never crossed paths. So when we started comparing notes and what we could do and who did what, we decided, well, hell, we can do this ourselves. So we started our own theater company.
Ray, where did you grow up?
Whittier.
Whittier. So you've been in this area basically the whole time?
I was local enough to be able to commute to L.A. for auditions or San Diego, whereas it was a nice central area for me. I worked a long time for Disney, so Anaheim's really close. So it was very central.
What'd you do with Disney?
I director, choreographer. I was started in California, and then they moved me to Florida, which was only supposed to be a couple months, and they ended up asking me to stay permanently, and I was like, I don't want to spend the rest of my life in Florida. So I came back home, and they said, well, we're probably not going to stay with the company then because we don't really have a place for you in California. And that year I ended up getting the Super Bowl halftime show, choreographing that, internationally televised, and the opening to the Rose Parade. So I thought, wow, I need to quit things more often because that was a really good year for me.
That's a big opportunity.
Who was
I was young. I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s when that happened. So
Who was
Super Bowl 21? Who was it?
Super Bowl 21. How did you know that? Yes.
I read a few things.
It was Super Bowl 21.
That's my job for the podcast.
Yes.
Who was it?
Oh, I'm not exactly a sports guy.
No, not the teams. Who performed?
Oh, good. Thank God. I thought you were going to ask me who played.
Who played, who won, and what was the score?
What was the spread?
Well, back in those days, you didn't have big Beyonce-type stars to do it. George Burns opened. And Disney was the host. So it was Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and all those people with 1,000 dancers, you know.
It wasn't the Up With People.
No.
Remember that?
It was Disney, remember. But George Burns did the opening, and Mickey Rooney was in it.
Oh, my God.
So I had pictures with Mickey, which was great.
Wow.
And where was it?
It was at the Rose Bowl. Yeah. So it was Mickey. So it was Mickey, the real Mickey, and George Burns. And then at that time, Flashdance was really big. So it wasn't Jennifer Beals, but it was her dance understudy, who was one of the stars of it as well. So,
well, one of our future guests is going to be the gentleman who sang "Maniac" on Flashdance.
Michael Cimbella.
Maybe I can get the stand-in dancer to come in.
Amazing. We'll put a chair here and a bucket of water right above it.
She'll feel right at home.
That's awesome. And early on, did you know this is what you wanted to do
I
with
started
your life?
tap dancing at 7 years old, and it was like, get out of the way, I'm going right to Broadway.
Did I see you got your equity card at like 13 or something?
I got very young, yeah. I was still in junior high school. I got on tour of Music Man, and so that started very young. Wow. Yeah.
And how'd the parents feel about it?
Parents were completely supportive, which is funny. They're not show busy at all and know nothing about the business, but thank God they were very supportive. And, back then, boy dancers weren't, commonly known to what your father dreams of you doing for a living. But, they were very supportive. And if that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do.
And what did he do?
My dad?
Yeah.
He worked for the Whittier Union High School District.
Okay.
So he prepared all the sports fields, like if there was a football game or a basketball game or whatever athletic event, that was his job to make sure everything was ready to go. So
your entree to performing, watching that.
There you go.
And so choreography, obviously, and I know that you like to teach tap to dueling banjos.
That's a whole other story. They're not going to get that yet. But yes, I started out just as a dancer in shows as a kid, and then that grew into parts and small roles and speaking roles. And then I got into doing a lot of bad 80s dance films. I did a tap dance with Linda Blair in Exorcist II, The Heretic, which is not a musical. And so that was, I made a career of doing really bad 80s dance films. And everybody says, why weren't you in New York? Why didn't you go to New York? Well, because I was making a lot of money doing bad 80s dance films, so I stayed here and did that.
But you were staying alive, right?
Yes.
That wasn't a bad... Well, it wasn't Saturday Night Fever.
No, it was not. No. So I got to be in that. Yeah, so I did a lot of that, and that's why I kind of stayed based in California. And then through that, I became a choreographer, and choreography led into directing, and here we are.
And talk about this. You must have, at this point, I think in your bio at Desert Theatricals, it says 150, but it's probably closer to 200 shows now.
We stopped counting after a while.
Yeah. I think that bio is probably from about 15 years ago.
Right.
Honestly, so yeah.
And I based that on if I saw another choreographer who said they did 100, I would go, I did 101. Just to stay competitive. So.
And how about you, Josh? Where are you from?
I was born in Orange County, California, in Santa Ana, and then I moved to Houston when I was about a year and a half, and went to public school out there for a while, got into the arts. My first show was as Oliver in Oliver, which we're doing at the amphitheater this year, and I got the bug and started doing shows, and Mom and Dad were very supportive. I got out and did a lot of shows in community theaters, and then did a production of Annie at, it was College of the Mainland, I think, in LaPorte, somewhere in that area in Texas. And the producer from Theater Under the Stars, Frank Young, at the time came out and saw that production of Annie, and which I was playing Rooster in. and said, I want you to come to Houston and do that show for us at Tuts, at Theater Under the Stars. So I went and did it, and I did the first year, and then they asked me back the next year because they did it every Christmas. The second year, I got to go back and do it with Joanne Worley, who was playing Hannigan. And after that show, Joanne said, "You need to be out in California." And she
and did you know who she was?
Oh yeah,
she was a big deal.
Oh yeah, she was the lady, the Kleenex and chicken joke lady, and laughing and all those things. But she had quite the career on stage too. So she really is the one who got me out to California, and I came out to L.A. I moved into Orange County and started doing shows at the Curtain Call Dinner Theater, and it was crazy. And then met him and.
The rest is history.
The rest is history.
Well, you have an interesting collection of folks that you've worked with, like Mitzi Gaynor.
Yeah, Mitzi Gaynor. I've produced shows for Mitzi Gaynor.
Debbie Reynolds.
Shirley Jones, Cloris Leachman, Vicki Lawrence.
Debbie Boone.
Debbie Boone, yes. Yep. We did a lot of those. That was in my days at the Welk Resort Theater.
Okay.
When that resort was still open in Escondido. It's since closed down, but they hired me in 2009, I think, to come in, and they said, we want you to come in and do one of two things, either make it work or shut it down. So I said, well, let's change the format. And they were spending all this money on union musicians and equity contracts, and I think like 14, 15, 16 equity contracts, and the money was just flying out the windows. And I was like, let's get in touch with your audience and the old Lawrence Welk people. So that first year I did Vicki Lawrence, Debbie Boone, Debbie Reynolds, Mitzi Gaynor, and Shirley Jones. And I said, we'll do
that's a great season.
Yeah, we'll do a year of the Broads, and in between we'll do a couple of Broadway musicals. So we would do a musical, and then we would shut down, and then the next week I would bring Shirley in, and she would come in, Wednesday afternoon, and we'd run through her show, and cue to cue, and do ins and outs with the orchestra that we hired for that day, do the show that night, and 2 shows the next day, and a matinee the next day, and then they'd head back home. So it was great. I got to actually spend some quality time with them. And learn a lot about them, which you don't normally get the opportunity to do. Even if you work in a show with somebody, there's no time. So we got some great downtime after shows because they stayed on the resort with us. So we'd go to dinner and talk. And Joanne Worley, I brought her back too because I said, she was from El Paso, so she came in and did her one-woman show there as well.
You had Michael Learned, the mom from the Waltons.
Kathy Rigby, Michael Learned. They did Steel Magnolias.
Oh, wow.
We co-produced that with La Mirada Theater with Tom McCoy and Kathy Rigby, and she was in it, and Michael was in it, and a great cast of women. So I called him and I said, why don't we just pick this up and bring it down to the Welk? We'll play it down there for 4 weeks or 5 weeks, and that was a great opportunity as well. So.
And you were growing up in Houston because your dad was an astronaut.
Yes, he was. Yeah, that was an interesting childhood. I took myself out of that because people don't realize we lived in a neighborhood called El Lago, which is where all the astronauts lived. We lived around the corner from Buzz Aldrin, and Charlie Duke was next door, and Mike Collins, and I mean everybody, John Glenn, everybody lived there. So we grew up with those kids, and the kids would do everything they could do to not be a part of that space program, and just because it was so time-consuming and crazy and stressful for the dads. So to us, it was no big deal.
I mean, like it's sort of like the mob movies. You do the same things with the same people all the time.
All the time, yeah. Absolutely. And that's when I found theater and kind of jumped out of it because I was like, I got to find something else to do. And people would always say, are you going to follow in your dad's footstep? And I was like, hell no.
No.
You couldn't drag me up into space with wild horses. There's no way I would do that.
And your dad was, he was a Skylab astronaut.
Yes. He was the commander of the third manned mission of Skylab in 1973. So we went to the Cape for his launch, and we were there 2.5 miles from the launch pad in the bleachers, watching that rocket with 50,000 pounds of thrust underneath them going up, and realizing your dad's sitting underneath this potential fireball. And they blasted off. They were up for 87 days.
Wow.
Orbiting the Earth. It was cool. There were times where we could go out in the front yard. They would let us know when he was going to be over, and we could see the spacecraft going over. And then certain other days, we had in our living room something called a squawk box. It was a direct phone line to Dad. So there were certain times during the week for about 2.5 minutes that we could talk to Dad.
Wow.
And we used to do that. But we had I grew up with 6 kids. I have 5 brothers and sisters. And so we'd 2 one day and 2 then 4 or 5 days later, and we'd all take our turns doing that. But it was interesting. It was a whole different way of growing up. And
it must have been interesting for a mother with that many kids and a husband who's focused completely on something else.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Talk about a long-distance marriage.
Yeah, right.
Low Earth orbit. That's
He's
a long
not
way to
taking
go.
out the garbage today.
And she was an interesting woman too. She was a very strong woman and wanted that same kind of recognition. So after the flight, as most astronauts did, sorry guys, they got divorced. So it was a tedious relationship. And so when they got divorced, we were, I think Jessica, I have a twin, Jessica, and then there's another single, John, and another set of twins, Jeff and Jamie, and then Jennifer's the oldest. So Jennifer was in her early 20s. We were all between 14 and 20 years old. Mom decided at that point she was going to go to law school. So she went to law school in Houston, got her degree, and passed the bar and started practicing law. And that was her kind of way of saying, yeah, I'm here too.
Did you maintain a relationship with your dad?
Oh, yeah, definitely. He moved to Arkansas, and he lived in Arkansas for a while with his new wife, Pat, who was an amazing artist. Pat Music. She's got works all over the place at Crystal Cove and in Missouri and all sorts of places. You'll see her art in airports and exhibits, and she did big chunky pieces and really great stuff. So he started working with her, and he was the one that would package everything up and ship it to the places it was going to be displayed. And they ended up moving to New York, and we lost Dad about 2 years ago, and Mom about 3 years ago. So, but yeah, we always kept in touch, and he was always very supportive, and even though he couldn't come to see in shows, he'd want us to send, videotapes in those days, and then DVDs and things like that. So he always kept up, and he always supported and loved what we did.
Now, when you guys came out to the desert and you did not plan to do theater work, what made you decide to do it, number one? And number two, I mean, we have a very thriving arts community. We have a great theater, but there are a lot of theater companies out here. So how did you find the right niche?
It was a funny story. It completely fell in our lap. And it was a matter of a lot of coincidences. I had been at the Walk 25 years directing and choreographing shows prior to coming out here. Unbeknownst to us, the then mayor of Rancho Mirage used to go see those shows.
Charlie.
We didn't know him, Charlie Townsend. We didn't know him from Adam.
Yeah.
We've been out here maybe a couple weeks, and the phone rings, and I pick it up, and I hear, "Are you the Welk guys?" And I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'm from the city. I have this theater I would like you to come look at." And we thought, okay, well, that's great. We thought it was going to be, why isn't it renting? Can you give us some advice? We get a lot of that. We thought, great. So we meet him. The Rancho Mirage Amphitheater. We take the tour. He goes, "What do you think?" I said, "I think it's great." He goes, "Do you want it?" And we both turn and look at each other. Remember, we came out with nothing. We turned, we looked, we went, okay.
Why not?
You didn't have to think about it long.
A week later, we're standing in front of City Council pitching a season that we didn't have, because you have to plan this out a year in advance. He stops me. He goes, "I really don't care what the hell show you do." He goes, "But we're not going to give you any money." And we went, okay. So we go home, we pull out that's a true story. Yeah. We go home, we pull out all our credit cards and throw them on the table. We go,
where do we have room on this?
What could we produce? What could we produce for this amount of money? And we decided Pirates of Penzance. There's no royalties, so we save a couple $1,000s right there. We've done the show a number of times.
Yeah.
We held auditions. Nobody knew who we were for Adam. Nobody had ever heard of us. 2 people show up. They audition. We offered them the show, and one of them turned us down. So we go, okay, what do we do now? What do we do now?
The Pirate of Penzance.
So we've done the show between us. We've done the show 20 times. We thought we'd call everybody we know. We just rehearse on weekends because most of these people are from LA and Orange County. They're not going to be able to come in. And we literally did that. They all said yes. We rehearsed on weekends. We put the show up. Luckily, it was a huge success. And the city saw it and went, okay, we'll back this. We'll support this. And lo and behold, that's what this became.
Then they asked us to do their Christmas show, and then we talked about that first real season, which was with Rick Michael, whom you know.
Oh, yes.
And we brought Rick Michael in from Las Vegas to do his Rat Pack show, and had a full season. Hal Linden was coming out to do a show, and because he had also worked for me at the Welk. And we had a couple shows lined up.
David Burnham and
yeah, just cabaret kind of things, and I think I don't remember what the first show was at this point, but we did one Broadway musical, and it was the whole season was so well received that we all got really serious about it, and then the city stepped in and said, let's talk about a full season. Let's talk about dinner theater with this. We want this to be a one-of-a-kind experience that nobody else is doing in the desert.
Right. They wanted it to be real five-star, and that's how now we've grown from Lulu's into Willie's and valet parking, and you walk to your tables, and it's dining under the stars, and it's a full course meal, and full orchestras and sets and costumes and lighting. So it's
We
like
need to do a remote.
I would love that. Would be wonderful.
This is a remote.
This is a remote.
But it really is a beautiful night in the theater, sitting under the stars, having a glass of wine, watching.
And
it
really just came out of nowhere. It really fell into our laps.
That's really how it happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what a great story to have the city decide, okay, now we're really going to put, because Rancho Mirage is a prestigious place, and they should put on a good theater show.
There's always a detour sign when I go past there. I have to circle around. And
You're not allowed?
It's probably on Fridays when they do the farmers market.
How much time had you been spending, if any, in the Valley before you made the move?
Well, it's funny. I came here, my very first teaching job I got was out at College of the Desert. I got my teaching credential, which they used to do then. Which is funny, it's a lifetime teaching credential, which I say that to people who are in the teaching field, and they like, really? You have one of those? The only other person I know that they gave it to was Gene Kelly, who started teaching classes at UCLA, and they said, well, he never went to college. You start working when you're 13. He didn't go to college. He can't just start teaching, and so they came up with a lifetime credential, which they gave him, which for all the work you've done accumulates. So that's how that started. So they started giving them to people out who had careers in other fields.
So his credential was based on all the experience he'd had at other theaters.
I still had to go to take a class and how to teach classes and things like that. But that's what I got. So I started, my first job was at COD. I taught there for a number of years, and then I left, never thinking I'd ever come back to the desert again. And that's before there was anything out here. And
but we probably came out maybe 3 or 4 times.
But that was years later.
Yeah.
So were you familiar with what was going on here from a theater standpoint?
Well, back then there wasn't much.
No?
I mean, the COD had to deal with the McCallum because the McCallum was built on COD that they could do X amount of shows. And I would direct a couple of those shows, which is, I loved the McCallum Theater. It was beautiful. And then I left.
Say that one more time for our presenting sponsor.
Yes.
McCallum
It is a beautiful theater. And I would love to direct and choreograph more shows as well.
In fact, this is an opportune time. We're going to take a quick break and hear from our presenting sponsor, the McCallum Theater, which Ray has directed shows and would love to do that again.
The McCallum Theater's 2024-2025 season is on sale now. The world's top artists, from jazz, pop, classical, and comedy to the best of Broadway. Only at the Valley's favorite place for great entertainment. Tickets are on sale now at the McCallum Theater box office, by phone, or online at McCallumTheater.org. Tickets sell quickly, so order yours today. A new, exciting season only at the McCallum. The McCallum Theater's 2024-2025 season is on sale now.
And once again, our thanks to the McCallum Theater for being the presenting sponsor of Big Conversations Little Bar.
And Ray for shilling.
And Ray, yes.
Did I read that correctly?
Beautiful.
You almost made it sound like it came from you.
Okay.
I love it.
Felt very organic from where I was. I thought the performance was genuine. It was real. I felt good about it. You had done that, and then you thought, we're not coming back to the desert.
It was time to move on. I didn't think I was going to really be teaching anymore. I ended up teaching at every college in Southern California at one point in my life. And that was like my day job, and then I would rehearse and do shows in the evening. And then they literally slowly did away with teaching credentials. Because when I came out here, I thought, I'll just bring out my teeth. I'll go back to COD. And I went to this credential meeting, and there was a lot of people there applying for credentials. And when he taught the class, I raised my hand at the end. I said, I've got a Lifetime credential, and everything stopped. She goes, "You do?" She goes, "Can I see it?" She says, "I've heard of that, but I've never seen one." Yeah, she thought I was going to pull out something made of stone or something. And so she goes, "Oh, that's amazing." She goes, "Unfortunately, they're not any good anymore, but it's amazing that you have one. I've never met anyone who had one." So I have it.
Well, it's only you and Gene Kelly. It's got to be worth something.
Right? So when you guys came out in 2018, and then the serendipity of the city wanting to partner up with you and do this, again, it's a bit of a crowded field. Obviously having the amphitheater and that is very different than what most theater companies are doing. So that is part of the niche, I guess, that you guys decided, here's something we can fill and grow with.
Yeah, and also we were doing it a little differently. There's not a lot of places out here using full live orchestras, other than what comes through the McCallum. So that was different. Than the dinner theater element was a little bit different. We were trying to implement and coordinate using, when we started the kids program, pulling some of those kids into the program so that they could get actual training with the youth program and then graduate into the adult program where they're getting paid to be an actor on this show. And then ultimately through the foundation that we created to give them a scholarship for continuing education in the arts.
Well, let's talk about the scholarship program very quickly, because you started the kids program and now that has kind of blossomed, and you have a foundation where you actually raise the dollars to give these kids a scholarship.
Yeah, the foundation was designed out of the youth program, and we have to give all props to the Rancho Mirage Library and Observatory Foundation, and to the Richard Brook Foundation and the Anderson Children Foundation, because they're the ones who underwrite the youth program. But with that, when we started moving them into the adult shows, we thought, well, what's going to happen when they're done with high school? Where, are they going to stay here and do shows and continue the education, or what are they going to do? So we came up with a foundation to do two things. One was to raise funds to be able to scholarship $2,500, two $2,500 scholarships a year to kids continuing their education in the arts. Excuse me. And the other was to provide free tickets to youth in the Coachella Valley who are interested in theater, and we'll take you to other theaters. So we've taken them now to a couple different shows, one at the Palm Canyon Theater, and we took them to a performance of Little Mermaid in Fontana area. And that's part of that mission, too, is to expose them to the arts. And we also provide blocks of free tickets for our shows, our adult shows at the amphitheater.
You can expose them to a lot in Fontana, not just theater.
Yeah, I know, right?
One of the points
don't need tickets.
One of the points I wanted to bring up that differentiates a little bit, too, there's a lot of retired Broadway folk out here, and they're coming out in droves. Yeah. And a lot of them are retired and not done anything for a long period of time. And since we knew a lot of them from back in the day, when we started this, they contacted us and said, I want to come out. I want to do something. There's a place now that we could do theater. And so a lot of those ex-Broadway people are doing our shows now, and it kind of brought them back into the world of theater, and we get to utilize professional Broadway caliber talent in our shows.
Yeah, I know David Green at Musical Theater University has been using a lot of Broadway talent, and that's great, and those kids are... it's terrific that they get that experience, and like what you guys are doing, where they actually work with somebody who's been on Broadway. And
did you feel a little bit like you had to grow the youth talent, and was that part of the reason you put the thing together? I mean, there's plenty of 70-year-old actors in this town.
There is,
and there's no youth component in Rancho Mirage.
Well, it's interesting. We have
again that detour.
Our demographic out here in the desert is interesting. We have like 7 to 17-year-olds, and then there's nothing.
Yeah, there's no one from 17 to like 24.
I can play 24.
Our first show, Big Musical Is Anything Goes.
There's not enough Grecian formula on the planet to get you to 24.
Damn it. But our chorus girls in our first production of Annie Get Your Gun, our chorus girls' average age was probably in their...
Careful.
Yeah, in their... Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just say it was
Nobody listens.
It was kind of like Palm Springs Follies. So that was the average, our chorus. And in anything
very
else,
talented.
Very talented and willing to work, and they danced their butts off, and they were wonderful. But we had definitely a mature chorus line.
We had a mature group of angels for Anything Goes. Yeah. But we also had a mature Reno Sweeney, and I thought, well, damn, if she's playing Reno Sweeney, I can play Billy again.
Well,
so I got
funny.
to play Billy one last
Billy,
time.
And we were looking for a leading lady opposite him. And an actress who used to work with us contacted us and said, "Oh, I want to go for
Hope." No, for
Hope.
Yeah,
for Hope. She goes. But I'm worried that I'm too old. And I said, "Oh no." I said, "You're fine." I said, "Josh is playing Billy," and she goes, "Oh, okay."
Oh, man, maybe I'm too young.
I'm in.
You said that when you guys got together, you realized that you had overlapping talents, but also kind of expertise in different areas.
Yeah.
So, but obviously, you still like to be on stage on occasion.
I do. Yeah, I haven't done it a lot, and I kind of retired from it. But when we did Anything Goes, we've done Anything Goes together maybe 4 times, and I've always been
I told
Billy.
you we should have opened with them doing Anything Goes.
But Pirates of Penzance, we've done about 100 times. So if you want anything,
yeah. But I mean, at that point, we've always had a hard time filling the role of Billy. Because Billy is a singer, he's an actor, he's a comic, he's a dancer, a tapper, and we had to have and a tenor, and we've never really been able to find somebody, and I always feel like I'm tooting my own horn, but it's really not. It's a hard role to fill, and after having done it the first time, I know, I feel it, I have it in my blood, I know the rhythm, I know how it works, I know the timing and all of that, and we just thought, and we always audition for it, but if we don't find, it's like, okay, we'll do it.
But he doesn't like any of them auditioning, so.
No.
Tuesday. Oh, sorry.
That's when the grease comes out on the stage.
So how would you describe where you guys kind of differ in your skill sets that makes this work so well?
It was always pretty clear-cut. We know where each other excel. I always direct and choreograph. He has no interest in that except any Rodgers and Hammerstein
Yeah,
show,
if it's Rodgers and Hammerstein, I direct.
Which I will not direct.
Because he doesn't do
and
it.
he's always been the musical director guy. So our lines were pretty cross. I can't conduct, nor would I musical direct. So we had our field. So we don't really have arguments or fights over, well, you did
but
this
then
and
we
I
get
did that.
into, but then the middle ground is in the producing. So there's the casting, there's the negotiating contracts, there's the finding the sets that we're going to rent, or are we going to build them? There's finding the costumes, are we going to rent or build props?
So he handles the business
all of
end
those
of it. I
things.
do the creative.
Yes.
As far as casting
So he's
and
really
things
the artistic director of Desert Theatricals, and I'm the managing director.
He's the money guy.
And then once we get into the theater, then our roles split apart, and we do our designated area.
Well, along with Billy, you've played some pretty iconic roles. Joseph.
Yeah, Joseph, the Scarecrow, Will Parker, Tony. I made a career of playing Tony
in West
Side Story.
Is that what's your favorite role? If you had to do one more.
If I had to, and age didn't matter, it would probably be Tony again.
Yeah.
I just love that show, and I've probably done over 200 performances of Tony over the years.
That's hard. I was the dancer boy and everything. I was Tommy Giles in Music Man and Tulsa and Gypsy and all those dancing roles. But my final shows were chorus line. I did a lot of chorus lines and played a lot of the guys on the line. And my goal was, and I always said I'd do Zach, the choreographer once, and then I'll bow out. And I did that. So I would probably say one more crack at chorus line if my body would let me,
When you put a show,
close the show with one.
There you go.
When you start thinking about putting a show into the season, are you thinking already about, here are the people that we know that are here that would be right for that, or are you just opening it up? And
I think it's natural. I think you do. I mean, we open it because we always find new people. Like, we just had a whole week of auditions, and I love our standard people who come in and are always there for us, and they're wonderful. But every year we get new people come in, and we don't, they just come from the heavens. And
but you do, to answer that. You have an idea.
Right.
It's like if nobody shows up at auditions, what would we do?
Right.
Type
if
thing.
only 2 people showed up, what would we do?
Yeah, so you always have, and you kind of then you hold your casting kind of up to that standard as what would you do if there weren't auditions. So, but we always, we never precast, and if we do, we say where this role is not available.
We have a lot of out-of-town people too that we will call and bring in from New York or bring in from Florida, or bring in for just in case.
And what were you casting for this time around?
We were casting Oliver and Hairspray, 2 more opposite shows.
And then in the fall, we're doing Addams Family.
So we've got a great season this year.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
very diverse though, and very diverse. We're having, it's a hard time finding people of ethnicity. But we had a good turnout. We found some wonderful girls out here for the Dynamites in Hairspray, and some great people, and some people from L.A., Orange County area too.
A young girl for Tracy Turnblatt just showed up from Mission Viejo.
Really?
Yeah.
Dropped out of the blue. We're like,
and absolutely perfect for the role.
But it was wonderful. We had probably about 6 Tracy Turnblatts to choose from.
Yeah.
And so it's been good. We've been very lucky.
That's a tough role.
People know us now. Where before people didn't know we existed or who we are. Now they've heard of us and it's become successful. So
yeah,
are there any slots still open? Because I know Randy's champing at the bit to audition.
Bill Sykes. We're looking for Bill Sykes, the bad guy in Oliver. That's what we're looking for.
You could be the head.
No, you can't have any more gruel.
and a little Inez, which is a little young African-American singer-dancer for
13 years old, ideally.
You're probably not going to get that.
I'm not going to get that part. Damn it. It's the white hair, isn't it?
It's the white hair.
It's the white hair, yeah.
So one of the things that I love, and we can go outside of the desert if you want, but got any good horror stories on something that just went terribly wrong on stage?
Well, I want to know how the Hello Dolly thing at the dinner theater in Tustin was.
There's a good story there.
Oh, that show?
The show where you guys met.
Yes. My opening night for that show. That's the perfect example. So it's a dinner theater, so there's a big kitchen and then the stage. Well, Ambrose's first entrance is through the back of the house, and you have to go through the kitchen. So
the salad room.
So when I rehearsed, they have those big sliding doors. So when I rehearsed, of course, those doors were all open, and it was open. Well, I didn't know from
Nobody
opening night
told them they were going to be closed.
They were closed. And I get to the door, and I'm literally doing this, and I hear my cue, and I'm like, oh my God. And I turned to the bus boys and waiters to help me. None of them spoke English. And I was like, how do I open this? I hear my lines. I know Ambrose would be here. He must be running late. And so finally one of them slides the door, and I'm like, I'm here. I'm so sorry. I'm late. The next day, the next performance, there's these huge arrows on the doors pushing as to where to push and how. That was a nightmare. That truly was a nightmare.
I think my horror story was at the same place, at Carr, where we all did a little bit of everything. During King and I, they didn't have someone to play Lunta, the love interest for Teptim.
Yeah.
So I'm running sound on this show. So I'm up in the booth. I'm hitting the sound cues to go. Back then it was on reel-to-reel, so everything was recorded. That was a nightmare in itself. If the tape broke in the middle of the show, you have to mute everything, put on your headphones, and get the splice it back together, and then catch up to where they are in your headphone and try to go.
Somebody can't get in the door.
Yes, exactly. But I was doing that, and the guy playing Lunta was out. He couldn't come in for a week. He was sick. And Farola's like, you'll do it. You'll play Lunta. I'm like, shit. So I get a black wig because, I look so Asian. All right? So I get a black wig. I'm up in the booth in costume, full makeup in the wig. I have to push my button for my own cue music, run like hell down the stairs, through the lobby, down the side, and make my entrance.
Out of breath,
and do the song. And then the light guy was kind enough to press the stop button for me after the song.
One more Hello Dolly, a different production of Hello Dolly with an unknown, very well-known star. This was your production, the production you did.
Initials.
She was so unpleasant that all the waiters are lined up on the staircase for her first entrance, singing Hello Dolly, and the curtains open, and she steps out, and she takes her first step and tumbles down the steps.
Because she's been nipping at
dress over her head, unpleasant, and not one of the guys bent over to
they all stood there looking.
She was so naughty during rehearsals and unpleasant that
nobody liked her.
Initials?
YDC. You won't get it.
I won't get it.
Think Munsters.
Yvonne DiCarlo.
Wow.
Edit that out.
She was really?
Yeah.
She was.
Yeah.
But all the chorus boys just went,
Yeah.
they looked down on the ground and just kind of went, kept singing.
Yeah.
Wow. Mama Munster was mean.
Yeah. Well, she was a little bit of a lush, too. So I guess we'll have to edit all this out.
That I won't hold against her.
The lush part's okay, but don't do the other.
Don't be a mean lush.
Exactly.
No one likes a mean lush. Everybody loves a friendly lush.
Peter Pan and Hello Dolly are the two shows that I don't know, for some reason, always have the best horror stories.
Yeah, the kids, we had one kid that It was his first show, Peter Pan, and he got nervous at the opening scene, and he threw up in his bed. And the girl playing the mother was trying to, cover it up, so she went to pull the covers up over, and of course the bed sheets were stapled to the bed, so she's popping the staples out to cover it up. And then he was fine until he got in the air.
And he threw up again.
Then he threw up again, and
Lots
it was
of
like
flying stories.
projectile all over the place.
Peter's first entrance into the nursery, the big doors are supposed to open, and she flies up and over. The doors didn't open, so all you saw was this, boom, and then you see her the nose slide down from the
down
top
the middle of the
and
window.
The audience is horrified. There's great people. You can go on YouTube and see all
There's
these.
great Peter Pan horror stories online.
Oh, speaking of throwing up, how was it working on Exorcist 2?
Well, it was a tap sequence, so there was no throw up.
There was no. She didn't barf in that
well,
scene.
she does. We're tapping. If you happen to have missed this epic movie, right in the middle of the tap number, she starts freaking out and she falls off the stage, and I am horrified and say something like, "Oh my God!" and she's freaking out there, but there was no vomit involved.
Okay.
No head turns.
Might have been a hit had you added some.
That's right. The Exorcist is one of my favorite movies. It scared me to death.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
But I don't think I've seen Exorcist 2.
You should.
I'll be honest. But now I'm going to
If you
because
wanna
I
see
didn't know you were in it. But now
you'll see him right front and
fast
center.
forward the first hour. if
Yeah.
you're gonna
Yeah.
I took my dad to see it, and he fell asleep in the first hour before I came on.
you're like, Dad, wake up here. I come.
Yeah. Everything post-Exorcist probably isn't real big on Linda
Right,
Blair's.
exactly.
Oh,
My gosh.
But it made for good storytelling,
Yeah.
What was it, when you did those movies? You said you did a bunch of these in the 80s. What was one of your favorites? Like,
Well, that was pretty fun. Staying Alive was fun. I didn't originally get cast in Staying Alive. They had the auditions. I was cut. And then about 2 days before they started filming, I think they lost them. They said, would you come in? And so I came in, and it was kind of being thrown to the wolves. But there were, like, killer dancers there, and John was there, and all the leads were there. And
But you did stuff on Columbo and
Columbo.
MASH. And
I saw. Yeah,
did a big dance sequence on Columbo with Randy Doney and
Really?
Wow, and
Yeah.
Randy's-
Janet
way
Leigh.
back then.
Janet Leigh was
Oh,
in
you
that.
guys still get together with
Oh,
Randy?
yeah, we see Randy. And he's been on our shows. Yeah.
I love Randy. He's terrific.
He is great.
Yeah, he's a
and what a
great guy.
career that guy has had.
Oh, I know. Amazing.
Yeah.
Man, yeah.
There's another good guest for the podcast.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
got Randy.
Anybody named Randy?
He has got stories about 12 years with Carol Burnett. He did all the Mel Brooks films. He dubbed the tap number for The Monster and Young Frankenstein. He's worked with everybody.
Yeah, he's
Wow.
done that. He's done everything.
And Larry Fuller is another one who's actor.
Yeah.
He's a big Broadway director, choreographer. He's got some wonderful stories. I don't know how many he could do on the air, but some wonderful stories.
There's no filter here.
Then
No.
he'd be perfect for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we may have lost a listener, though. I think Yvonne DiCarlo was a really big fan.
That's
She
her
may not
fault.
be-
It's really her fault if you think about it.
It is
she
her
didn't have
fault.
to be like that.
Right.
She didn't have to.
be.
You got
That's
to
right.
be an ass. I mean, for God's sakes.
Oh, my God.
Everybody likes a cocktail.
We're gonna
You don't
be
have to be a jerk about it.
The best bit was the chorus boys, though, who all did look down, looked up, and kept singing. And poor Rod's rolling around on the floor.
They're all pros.
Love it.
You were talking about doing Tony in West Side Story. Mm-hmm. I saw this great production of West Side Story, but it was in the scene where the Sharks and the Jets and this big dance number, the Rumble.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a kid who was right in the front, and it was a particularly hard dance move. It was. I'm not a dancer, but obviously it was a difficult one.
Everything in a Joe and Robin show is difficult.
And he did it perfectly and nailed the landing. And it was so funny because I could tell he was so happy. He broke out into this.
I love it.
Then you get real serious.
Then you get, wait a minute, this is the Rumble.
That's the first time I got it.
The West Side Story that I directed him, and he did Tony, he sang his big number to the balcony scene. It's a huge set unit. And it sang his number, blackout, and the set's supposed to then roll off, which it didn't.
So I can go into Maria.
Right. So he's standing there in blackout. So I'm back there going, it's not moving. It's not moving. This one in blackout with a broken ankle. He broke his ankle jumping over the fence. Broke his ankle with a broken leg. Pushed the set off by himself.
Oh my God!
They had a bucket.
You're not interrupting my number, baby.
They had a bucket of ice water, so then he went and stuck his foot in the ice, and then came back out and did it.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there going, the set's not moving. The set's not moving. There he is pushing this, and it was not small. It was
It's
it was the
crazy.
balcony unit.
Yeah, I'd shattered my heel coming over the
fence.
night before or 2 nights
Oh,
before.
my Lord.
Coming
And
over
you're
the
still-
fence in the Rumble, and I shattered my heel. And then I was doing the ballet as well, which was tough anyway. But yeah, I would go off stage, and they would plunge my foot into a bucket of ice to freeze it again, which was almost more painful than the shattered heel. And then I'd go back out and finish up this show. So I think I did the rest of that week with a shattered
and
heel.
push the balcony off whenever.
And push the balcony off.
Whenever it was-
Is that the worst injury you ever got on stage?
Yeah.
Wow.
Otherwise, I've never broken anything. I've never had a broken bone or anything.
Now, you as a dancer, Ray, I mean, no injuries?
I've been really lucky.
That's good.
Really, really lucky. And I have a lot of friends out here who, have had knee surgeries and hip surgeries and all, so I don't even talk about it. I'm just...
So, obviously, you guys run Desert Theatricals together. You're married. You live together. Is it, I think some couples, thrive in that environment. Was that an adjustment for you, or
it's
were
so
you guys
funny. We never think about it until people say that.
Yeah.
Like, how do you live together and work together?
Because it's never been an issue.
So tell us what you think now.
I mean, my wife lives in L.A. That's how far she goes to get away from me.
You love it.
But we do. We get asked a lot, and until they say it, it's never been an issue, really. I mean, there are times when we, look sideways
like every couple, you have there's the pet peeves and the rolling eyes.
But it's very rarely about the work. It's not usually about the work,
No, it's never about the work. It's about the home.
Right, you didn't take the garbage out, and that's
But it never spills over into the. Rarely does it spill over. It has a couple times into rehearsals, and people are like, "Oh." But for the most part, we've been very compatible in everything, and for 33 years of working together. We even share the office together at home. We have a double-sided desk that,
This is the first time I've been able to be in the office. I never was in the office before.
I put him in a closet one
time. In the other house, I took the closet out, and I made so he had this whole, and I had a little closet section. But this is the first
but I was doing most of the work.
This is the first house. The guy,
here we go.
The guy starting. There you go. You're starting the fight. You're going to end watch. This is the end of Desert Theatricals as of today. But
it's just the beginning for Big Conversations, a little bar.
When we moved into the new house, this had a two-sided desk. I thought, oh, great, I can be in the office. And no response.
I was well, that's where I was going to put all my accoutrements.
It was during COVID, one of the things when I had to start working from home, the biggest thing, the adjustment my wife and I had to make was when we'd pass each other in the hall, it seemed like, I should acknowledge you. I should tell you I love you. And at some point, about a week later, I go, is it okay if we just walk past each other to go where we're going? And she was very fine with it. So
that's funny.
I think the standard greeting is just a swat on the fanny as you walk.
Oh,
yeah.
You can't do that anymore.
When I came today, you're right.
I appreciated it, too. I've been working out. I got that Buns of Steel video. And
do you have an HR department here?
No. You're looking at it.
No, that's right.
Are there any roles?
John's our HR department. You ought to hear the stuff he says.
Are there any roles that you have not played in your career?
No. Sorry.
Yes. No, I have one. And I haven't decided if I would actually do it or not, but if we ever do My Fair Lady, I do want to play Henry Higgins. That's one role I've always wanted to play, and I'm the age now. I probably would have memorized it easier a few years back, but I definitely that's one of the roles I definitely would like to do.
What about you?
All the guys in Chorus Line I played, I never got to do Mike, which is the tapper guy.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to.
And
do
you're the
him.
tap guy.
Yeah, I know. I've understudied him, but I never went on for him. So I would have liked to have done Mike once.
I have to tell you that I am always in amazement when I watch tap dancing because it's such a wonderful art. And it's a bit of a lost art these days.
Well, it's coming back, though. I got to tell you, my classes are packed.
Oh, I love to hear that.
They are jam full.
Yeah. When you see it done well, it's. I mean, you can't help but just stand up and applaud.
And I got to tell you, he's known. He's really famous for being one of the best tap teachers in Southern California.
Thank you.
But
it's coming back, like you said. And it's funny is that there's very few adult classes out there. There's a lot of classes for kids, but there's very few adult tap classes. So it's nice that it's kind of making a resurgence, like you said. And the more musicals, like when 42nd Street was out, everybody was tapping. But, those come every 5 or 10 years, and then it comes back again. But, there was a...
Well, people loved it when we did Anything Goes, the big, huge Anything Goes tap number at the end of Act 1.
And they want another
people
tap
went bananas.
show. They want tap shows.
It's so we're looking at tap shows for 2026. We're starting to plan now, so we're looking at, and we've thrown around 42nd Street as a title.
Crazy for you and
Crazy for you.
I think you guys should put in a big tap sequence in Miss Saigon. I think that'd be great.
Propellers on their heads.
They did that with Music Man on Broadway, but the revival with Hugh and Sutton Foster. All of a sudden at the end there's this huge tap number.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's the website for Desert Theatricals?
Desert-theatricals.com.
Desert-theatricals.com. Log on, check out the season. They always put on tremendous shows. Their kids' shows are great. You get great talent, and you are great talent. Thank you very much for spending some time with us.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
is great.
It's amazing what you've done for the kids in this community too. Watching people like Charlotte up come through, pretty amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Well, support local theater, support desert-theatricals.com, and thank you guys very much for spending some time with us on Big Conversation Little Bar.
You got it.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
Joshua
having
Carr,
us.
Ray Limon, and Randy Florence, thank you, sir.
Patrick Evans, good to see you.
John McMullen, thank you. Excellent work as usual.
Was that your butt I patted when I came in?
It was. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. May I have another? That wraps up this edition. We'll be back. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Our thanks to Skip Page. Our thanks to the McCallum Theater, our presenting sponsor. And remember that you can find Big Conversations Little Bar on all of your favorite podcast platforms.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Big Conversations Little Bar. Recorded on location at Skip Page's Little Bar in Palm Desert, California, the center of the Coachella Valley universe. And presented by the McCallum Theater. Online at McCallumTheater.org. This program is a production of the Mutual Broadcasting System. All episodes are available from BigConversationsLittleBar.com and most major podcast portals, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify.